Once upon a time, in a kingdom bathed in sunlight and filled with laughter, there lived a kind king and a loving queen. For years, they had wished for a child, and one day, their hearts overflowed with joy when the queen announced she was expecting a baby. It was a time of great happiness, but a strange and powerful craving soon took hold of the queen. She yearned for a special, vibrant green plant called Rapunzel, which grew only in the enchanted garden of a mysterious witch who lived nearby. The king, seeing his wife's deep longing, knew he had to get the plant for her. The air was thick with the scent of enchanted flowers, and the Rapunzel leaves shimmered in the moonlight. He carefully picked a handful, his heart pounding in his chest. But just as he turned to leave, a shadow fell over him. It was the witch, her eyes glinting with a stern light. "Thief," she hissed. The king, terrified, dropped to his knees and begged for forgiveness, explaining the queen's desperate craving. The witch considered his words, her expression unreadable. "You may take the Rapunzel for your queen, but you must promise me something in return." The king, desperate, agreed instantly. "When your child is born," the witch declared, "you will give the baby to me." The king's heart sank. It was a terrible price to pay, but he had given his word. Defeated, he returned to the castle with the Rapunzel, and the queen, unaware of the grim bargain, ate it with relief. Months later, a beautiful baby girl was born, with eyes as bright as the summer sky and a tuft of hair that shone like pure gold. The king and queen were overjoyed, but their happiness was short-lived. True to her word, the witch appeared at the castle. With heavy hearts and tears streaming down their faces, the royal couple handed over their precious daughter. The witch took the baby in her arms and named her Rapunzel. She then disappeared, taking the little princess far, far away from her home and family. The witch took Rapunzel deep into a lush green forest, to a place no one could ever find. There she had built a magnificent, tall tower that reached for the clouds. But this tower was a prison. It had no stairs. Here, in this lonely fortress, the witch raised Rapunzel as her own. As the years passed, Rapunzel grew into a stunning young woman. She was sweet-natured, kind to the little birds that visited her window, and filled with a curiosity about the world she could only glimpse from above. But the most remarkable thing about Rapunzel was her hair. Her long golden hair had never been cut, flowing down the tower like a sparkling waterfall, all the way to the ground. This magnificent hair was the witch's secret way into the tower. Whenever she came to visit, she would stand at the bottom and call out in her raspy voice, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Hearing the call, Rapunzel would obediently gather her heavy, silken braids and drop them out of the window. The witch would then grab hold of the strong tresses and climb up, hand over hand, like a living rope. Rapunzel's days were long and quiet. She spent her time singing beautiful, sad songs that echoed through the forest, drawing pictures of lands she dreamed of visiting and watching the birds soar freely in the sky. She felt a deep loneliness in her heart, a longing for a friend and for a life beyond the stone walls of her tower. She often wondered what lay beyond the endless sea of trees, and if she would ever get to experience it for herself. One sunny afternoon, a handsome prince was riding his magnificent white horse through that very forest. He was on a hunting trip, but he soon became captivated by the sound of an enchanting voice drifting through the trees. It was the most beautiful singing he had ever heard. Intrigued, he followed the melody, which grew stronger and clearer until it led him to an unexpected clearing. There, standing before him, was the tall, mysterious tower. The singing was coming from the window high above. The prince was mesmerized. He returned to the tower day after day, hiding behind the trees, just to listen to the beautiful, unseen singer. One day, while he was hidden, he saw the old witch approach the tower. He watched in amazement as she called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." He saw the incredible cascade of golden hair tumble down and watched as the witch climbed up and disappeared into the window. A brilliant idea sparked in the prince's mind. The next evening, after the witch had left, the prince rode back to the tower. Taking a deep breath, he mimicked the witch's call, shouting, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Up in her room, Rapunzel heard the call. The voice sounded different, younger, and kinder, but she thought perhaps the witch was simply in a hurry. As she always did, she let her long, golden braids fall to the ground. She felt a tug, but it was much lighter than the witch's pull. A moment later, a handsome young man appeared at her window, his eyes wide with wonder. Rapunzel was startled at first, having never seen another person besides the witch, but the prince had a warm and gentle smile that quickly put her at ease. He introduced himself, and they began to talk. They shared stories, dreams, and secrets. The prince told her about his kingdom, about festivals and dances, and the bustling life outside her tower. Rapunzel told him about her songs, her drawings, and her deep desire for freedom. They laughed together, and for the first time in her life, Rapunzel didn't feel lonely. Their friendship turned to love, and they eagerly planned Rapunzel's escape together. Their plan was simple. Each time the prince visited, he would bring a skein of silk with him. Rapunzel would weave the silk threads together, creating a strong ladder that she could use to climb down from the tower forever. Their hearts were filled with hope and excitement for the future they would build together. But one day, without thinking, Rapunzel made a fateful mistake. As the witch was climbing her hair, Rapunzel innocently remarked, "You are so much heavier to pull up than the prince." The witch's face turned dark with fury. "What did you say?" she shrieked. "You have betrayed me." In a fit of rage, the witch grabbed a pair of sharp scissors. Snip, snip. In a matter of seconds, Rapunzel's magnificent golden hair lay in a heap on the floor. The witch, her heart filled with cruel vengeance, then used her magic to banish Rapunzel, sending her to a desolate, faraway wasteland to fend for herself, alone and heartbroken. But the witch wasn't finished. That evening, she waited in the tower. When the prince called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," the witch threw the severed braids out of the window. The prince, unaware of the terrible trick, climbed up with a heart full of love, expecting to see his beloved. Instead, he was met by the glaring, triumphant face of the witch, and you will never see her again. In despair, the prince lost his balance and fell from the tower into the thorny bushes below. The thorns didn't kill him, but they scratched his eyes, and when he stumbled to his feet, the world was dark, heartbroken, and sightless. The prince wandered the land for many long days and nights, calling Rapunzel's name. He survived on roots and berries, his only hope the faint memory of her song. Meanwhile, Rapunzel was living a hard life in the wilderness, but her spirit, though tested, was not broken. One day, as the prince stumbled through a remote part of the forest, he heard a familiar, sorrowful tune. It was her. He followed the sound of the singing, his heart pounding with hope. "Rapunzel," he called out. Rapunzel heard his voice and ran towards him. Seeing him so lost and hurt, she burst into tears of both joy and sorrow. She rushed to him, and as she hugged him, 2 of her happy, magical tears fell upon their eyes. In an instant, a miracle occurred. His vision cleared, the darkness lifted, and the first thing he saw was the beautiful, loving face of his Rapunzel. Together, they made their way out of the wilderness and back to the prince's kingdom. As they approached the castle, the news of the lost princess's return spread like wildfire. The king and queen, now old and grey with years of sadness, couldn't believe their eyes when they saw their daughter. There were tears of joy and a celebration unlike any the kingdom had ever seen. Rapunzel was finally home. Soon after, Rapunzel and the prince were married in a grand ceremony, surrounded by their loving family and cheering subjects. Their lives were filled with the laughter, singing, and adventures they had always dreamed of. They ruled the kingdom with kindness and grace, and together they lived happily ever after. If you enjoyed our journey to the tower and back, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more wonderful fairy tales and adventures.